The Biden administration went hard after social media today, but is this just simply some effort to combat misinformation online, or are they after your right to free speech? I want to play for you a couple of things, but before we get into everything, you're going to be blown away when you hear Biden's answer to this question from the press today.
What's your message to platforms like Facebook?
What's your message to platforms like Facebook? The answer to that is everything. I'm going to play it for you in just a second. But let's go back to earlier in the day when White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was speaking to the press, and she made a pretty stunning claim. She suggested that when somebody is banned from one social media platform, let's say YouTube, they should be banned from all social media platforms. There should be no disjointed banning or blocking of people on platforms. These are all private companies. They all have their own terms of service. What she's saying is an impossibility without government being the heavy hand in the situation, which is perhaps what they're looking for. Here is Jen Psaki, the press secretary.
To create robust enforcement strategies that bridge their properties and provide transparency about rules. You shouldn't be banned from one platform and not others for providing misinformation out there.
So you should not be banned from one platform and not others, as if there should be some information sharing going on between all the major social media platforms. And once you get nuked on one of them, that means your voice is eliminated from all social media platforms. This is impossible to enforce, number one, but it's also the government telling private businesses what to do, which is really bad for free speech in the long term. Now, let's go back to what I told you was maybe the whole crux of this and the most important thing. This reporter says on COVID misinformation, what do you have to say about companies like Facebook?
What's your message to platforms like Facebook?
They're killing people. I mean, look, the only pandemic we have is among
killing
the
people.
Unvaccinated. And they're killing people.
What's going on with his mouth? He sounds like he's all numbed up there. Let's go back to that real quick. He's got like something going on.
Platforms like Facebook.
They're killing people. I mean, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated.
That's right.
And they're killing people.
He may have had something in his mouth, but his message was very clear. He says Facebook is killing people. And if you suggest through your messaging as the president of the United States that an outlet like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or Twitch is killing people, well, then it's the right and moral decision for the U.S. government to get involved and start enforcing what should and shouldn't be said on these platforms, right? I mean, is there any other way? Otherwise, they'd be part and parcel to the killing that was done on behalf of these social media platforms and their decisions. Now we go over to Jen Psaki. Here she is yesterday talking about how the White House is flagging misinformation about COVID-19 and the vaccines on Facebook. What does that mean? Let's try to find out.
First, we are in regular touch with these social media platforms, and those engagements typically happen through members of our senior staff, but also members of our COVID-19 team. Given, as Dr. Murthy conveyed, this is a big issue of misinformation, specifically on the pandemic. In terms of actions, Alex, that we have taken, or we're working to take, I should say, from the federal government, we've increased disinformation research and tracking within the Surgeon General's office. We're flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation. We're working with doctors and medical professionals to connect.
Watch that coughing. Watch that coughing. Fourth wave going on here. Jen Psaki said, we are flagging information and posts for Facebook. So we're flagging, well, she said misinformation and posts for Facebook. Now, does that mean that they're like harassing the social media platforms? And they're hard on Facebook in particular because they believe that Facebook is the most ideologically out of line with the White House. That would be my guess there. Not that it has the most misinformation. I mean, come on. All of these platforms have their fair share of misinformation on both sides of the aisle. But if the White House is actually putting pressure on Facebook, like we think you should delete this one and delete that and ban this account and that account, which they very well could do because they have a lot of power as the White House and the presidency. If they're doing that, that's entirely wrong and against what this country is all about, in terms of free speech and your rights as a U.S. citizen. If they are finding posts that are on these platforms, and they should be looking on multiple platforms, that are against the terms of service already, and they're just pointing them out to those platforms, maybe that's different. Tell me what you think about that in the comments below. Regardless, the White House is bringing it against these social media platforms. The CCDH said Friday that 35 social media accounts tied to people it identified had now been shut down. These are what they think are the people who are responsible for spreading the most mis or disinformation out there. They have been shut down, losing 5.8 million followers. They said 62 accounts with a total of 8.4 million followers are still active. And I guess they said CNN reported that meetings between the Biden administration and Facebook have grown tense. Well, of course they are. Of course they are. You called them murderers. You said Facebook is killing people without a shred or iota of evidence that that is happening. So that gets into tough territory there. All of this boils down to the Center for Countering Digital Hate and their Disinformation Dozen. They mention about 12 people, a dozen people that they say are responsible for this. And they say dangerous content, misinformation. The actual report says these people account for 73% of Facebook's anti-vax content, right? And in this case, the only name I even recognize on this list is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is a prominent Democrat who's long been with stances like this. And then it got a little heated back and forth between Peter Doocy and Jen Psaki. Here's how he phrased a question towards her.
Speaking of misinformation and the announcement from yesterday, for how long has the administration been spying on people's Facebook profiles looking for vaccine misinformation?
Well, that was quite a loaded and inaccurate question, which I would refute.
How?
Well, Peter, first of all, as you know, we're in a regular touch with a range of media outlets.
And we expect
As we are in regular touch with social media platforms.
All right, so she's trying to go, look, we talked to everybody out there. His question was absolutely unfair. I mean, how long have you been spying on the American public? The reality is all of these are public postings on public social media outlets. It's just that they're ratting out these people by taking the information and giving it to Facebook and saying, look, these are the folks you should delete. But is that against the First Amendment, or at least the idea behind and the essence of the First Amendment in this country? Or is this something that they actually should be doing? And if they are using any force, any power of the U.S. government to get Facebook to bend the knee, and they get to determine what is misinformation, what isn't, what should be allowed online in discussion, and what shouldn't, that's a whole nother can of worms. What do you think about this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I know you will. You always do. And we appreciate you around here. Heading to 75,000 followers on Facebook. Hit the share button to help out with that, number one. And number two, if you're new around here, well, you get videos just like this every single day. Facebook.com/The News Junkie. Hit follow. Over on YouTube, it's YouTube.com/The News Junkie. Click subscribe. I appreciate you watching this video, and I want to hear your thoughts below. I'll interact with you down there in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again real soon.